Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to the Artist Within podcast. I am your host for season 1, The Road to Resiliency, Adela Hittel, and this podcast is produced by Think, Project Human, A New Way to Think. I'm really excited for our next guest and to talk to him about his work. I've actually had the privilege and the honor of following him on our social medias for quite a while now, as I've been in the film game of just the back end and behind the scenes. It's been a really unique experience to watch humans grow and see their work grow and see where they're going to go, and then to meet them in person and to see what they stand for and who they are in that view from what you've seen. And this next guest is just absolutely phenomenal, at least from my perspective. And now I could be wrong in all the shapes and forms and sizes. However, I do believe wholeheartedly that seeing and humans who can portray one vision of themselves and who they are through their art, and through that and be authentic and then be met in person that way, it's a beauty and it's a rarity in this industry, in this world. So I am so excited to introduce to you guys Carlos Smith II, and he is here to talk about his experience in the film industry and to talk about his Cast 2 Films company and the future soul film that's going to be coming up. So without any further ado, let me stop talking and introduce you guys to the man of the hour, who will do a much better job in the introduction. So Carlos, welcome to the Artist Within podcast. Thank you so much for taking your time to share your voice and your story and experience here with us. Please take it away and introduce yourself. Give us a way better introduction than I did.
No, you did great though. No, you did a great job. So no, I highly appreciate it. But for some of y'all may know who I am. Some of y'all probably don't know who I am. But my name is Carlos Smith II. Some know me by Los 2K. I represent Cast 2 Films. I have been doing filmmaker for 15 years. I've been doing the videography for 18 years. And it's something I've had a passion of doing for such a long time. Was not born in Jacksonville, but I was raised in Jacksonville. But I'm from Jacksonville because I pretty much spent my whole life here for the most part. But also, I also do videography as well. I film events, I film music videos, commercials, things like that. But my biggest passion is the filmmaking part itself.
I love that. So let me ask you, like I said, I followed you for a little bit, and now obviously everything is running out of my brain that I had on even my notes. My iPad just shut down, so that's just great because it's on my notes. But can you tell me what was your first film or project that you fully put yourself in, from the director-writer perspective, the whole thing? It was your baby, and how did that influence and change the way you viewed art? And was there a moment in that time that you saw the correlation between your mental health and your state of being, and saw that there was value in learning the full craft of this industry?
That is a great question. I just had to put that out. That was a great question. I'll say, well, I did some films before I started taking it seriously, and then but I'll go from the point where I started taking it seriously. So when I did my first feature film, it was called Homeboys. I premiered it at Sunray Cinema back in 2013, and just doing that at the time, it was something. Filmmaking was something I've always wanted to do, and I just kind of went for it. Didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't really that much, talented at that point yet. But I remember when we did the film, and I was enjoying the process as I was going, and I was learning at the same time that biggest thing is patience, number one, because you're dealing with everybody's schedules and things like that. But for me, mentally, it started building me mentally, because it made me realize the potential that I have as a person and a filmmaker, and being able to bring people together. And ultimately brought a joy to me when I premiered the film, and people just showing love and respect for the craft at the end of the day. And it showed me what I was capable of doing. So me mentally, it was a special place. It was a special thing for me. Just knowing I have the capability of telling stories on a bigger scale than I'm used to doing. And, just to sum it all up, it's just something I enjoy. And that's just something I've been wanting to continue ever since that moment.
I love that. You just stated something that this year, I finally came with a quote to kind of summarize what you said too. The confidence in my knowledge will override the feeling of incompetence. And I believe that we as human beings, we only feel, and I use the word feel because it's how we narrate so much of our words versus actuality and fact and reality, but how we feel about the world and the perception of the world as less than and inadequate because of the lack of knowledge. And that could be the lack of knowledge in any subject. You know, we're talking about film in particular, but it could be in any subject. And to know that an art and a craft can give you that, and if you have enough self-awareness and conscious want to go, you know what, this is a good path, right? This gives me confidence. This gives me, this makes me feel good. I enjoy this. This is a path that I can create a bit more with. I like the response of this. And it was really just because, again, you gained that knowledge, which literally provided you the confidence to be here now and making, you know, the future soul. And so I wanted to ask, how do you believe that art influences your filmmaking, but just in general, our living as human beings? How does that influence our being of our spirituality, our minds, our conscious awareness, and even our physical form?
And once again, a great question. Love these questions already.
Welcome to The Artist Within. We're here to have a deep and empowered conversation. That's why I was like, it's different. I want to know more, so that we find value in the conversation, right? Not just skimming over stuff. So yeah. So how do you find, what's your correlation of the influence on that?
So I'll just say this. I will definitely say this. Number one. So when I started getting better at filmmaking, even up to The Future Soul, one thing I've noticed that I have a lot of people telling me that I've inspired them to do films, I inspired them to write stories, inspired them to do this, that, and the third, and showing them what's possible. You know, for me, it's a great feeling because I was once that person that, you know, was on the other side, was like, dang, I want to learn how to do this one day. And I'm watching other people with more experience than me at that point doing what they're doing. And it's me finally being in that place where I can kind of do my part and just, you know, share. But also for like on the spiritual side, it's very profound for me because, and I'll share this story because I think it's very interesting. I've had some fun facts, and I call them fun facts for cast members of the film that I'm doing now. So like characters that remind me of my family members, and I remind them of their family members, or we've had very similar connections of some sort. So for example, one of the characters that's based on my sister, so the character that she's based on, she's the youngest sister that I have in my, you know, siblings or whatever. And she's the youngest of her siblings. Mm-hmm. So just like little connections like that has been happening pretty much every time I do a film now. And it's so much I can go for, but I feel like it's just bringing people together at the end of the day and just letting them know what, you know, how much power it is when it comes to bringing them together. It's so much I can go for, but it's just to sum that up.
Well, it's unity, right? And again, when we talk about the artist within, I'm not here to preach anybody's beliefs, faiths, or any kind of shape or form. It's whatever every individual human being has for themselves that that is your personal conversation. My own one is that we're God's children, and we have one narrative, and that's the word, and that word is creation and power and light and you know, just greatness from that, which is what we all seek from our own children, our own family members, our own everybody. But we don't look at the value within ourselves. And I found very interestingly through my experiences of being, you know, I'm a special effects makeup artist and cosmetologist in my background, and working on human beings and creating things that have to create, like, the human body, the human being is my favorite canvas when it comes to the art form, and learning that canvas, learning how that absorbs, right, the information, the paint, the strokes and the brush, like the tools we use. It is such a fascinating thing to me. And what we project out of that, right, is this beautiful creation of an art piece, whether again through film or through this. I think that connection and spirituality, you get to question, you know, who you are, where you're from, what you want out of this life, where you want to go, how you want to define it, what defines you. And when you create a piece, something that you have so much control over, you know, where you're the director, the producer of it, the writer of it, you gain this understanding of a self, I believe, in such a deeper way that I don't think you would get if you didn't step into that role, because you're only playing roles in different ways.
Correct.
How has, in your opinion, navigating, you know, this life and this journey and getting to where you are, because you have a lot of experience in this industry here, especially in Jacksonville. I mean, you're going on almost 2 decades now fully of being immersed in this world, which is phenomenal. I kudos to you, by the way, because most of us are quitting left and right just because it's hard to even, you know, get through the first no or first thought. How have you navigated your creativity, your need to express, but still maintaining the structure of yourself while balancing reality? Because our artistry is a double-edged sword, right? It's such a beautiful play of creating, and yet it can create destruction just as easily as it can create this greatness. And sometimes greatness is even harder, it's harder, let me rephrase that, it is harder to create because it requires a lot of more non-negotiables from yourself, like discipline and commitment and determination and faith and belief in yourself. How have you navigated that journey? Because I know that it is extremely lonely and extremely dark at times for an artist or for a human, and just in humans. I mean, we talk about that just through mental health all the time. It's so hard for them to navigate this world. How have you done that, and in correlation with what you're doing too? And how has that helped you?
Well, to be honest with you, what keeps me going is the results that I've gotten in the past projects that I've been doing for the last, you know, several years or whatnot. I think about all the success that I've gotten to this point. I think about all of the great moments, the great memories that it's created. I start there. And I always think about the people that supported everything I've been doing. So that alone has been my, you know, some sort of motivation for me to keep going. And also, you know, I personally feel nobody can tell your story better than you. You know what I mean? So that's a thing that I go by, you know, because you telling your story is the only way it's going to be told correctly, honestly. So I think about that as well. And of course, all the other aspects of artistry in general, we already know, like when you deal with the reality and all that stuff, you got to think about, you know, the biggest thing is to not rush. And I feel like if you try to get it done just for the sake of getting it done, you're going to be sacrificing things that you don't need to be sacrificed to get it done. And therefore, you're going to be hurting in both sides, you know, on your creative side and your reality side. So you don't want to do that. So if you have to take your time and get things together on one end just so it won't interrupt the other, that's another way I think about it. And that's just another way I see yourself be able to get that vision out without having to, you know, let yourself, go self-destruct mode. You know what I mean? So
I think what you just said is so powerful, because we're talking about the correlation between creativity, being able to create something tangible to the world for the community, for the market, for the people, for whoever it is out there that is consuming that. When we create that, and you said that is your story, it is 100% your narrative that you're speaking and that you're sharing, your perception, your essence. You can't necessarily give 100% of it because not everybody's going to agree to it. But what you can do is give parts of it. And as you mentioned, I think as human beings, we should be able to associate. I think everything is art. I think this conversation is art. I think that walking your dog is art, right? Because it requires energy, it requires thinking, it requires processing, and it requires actually putting things together. How elaborate and how colorful is all up to each own's perspective or decision. But everything you do. Washing your dishes, by the way, guys, is art. To learn how to do that one art. That's an art piece that we should all learn. But it's part of who we are. I don't think we value ourselves as a human being, as an artist, in a way that is the actual like paint, the actual brush, the actual camera, the actual, right, like the actual boom, the actual recording device, like in a way that makes you go, well, I need all of those things to create my vision, but what I have within me is all of those. I have a voice, I have a story, I have my eyes that have created these images and these visuals that nobody else can see and nobody else can put forth. How has that process, and then convincing humans to see that vision and see that narrative, what has that been like for you? And has there been challenges and struggles in working through those relationships? Because again, when we think about our perspectives and our passions and these moments that we got this idea and we can create, we artists can look at somebody as the camera person, as the boom, but when we look at it from that self perspective, how has that translated to being able to get help for people, especially again, if we're not financially able to pay someone? Or what has that challenge or that trial been for you in this industry?
Well, the biggest thing, and so preparation has definitely been the biggest thing, and that's, if you prepare everything correctly, then it'll run a lot smoother. But then again, sometimes when you plan, sometimes it falls through, sometimes it does. I take a lot of time in planning before I approach anybody about what I'm doing. That is the utmost important thing for me before I start anything, or before I present my vision to anybody, before I bring the idea to just, I need to 100% know what I want to do before I bring it to anybody else, because I've had situations where I just kind of come up with little small ideas and I just talk to people here and there. I realize it doesn't work that way, at least not for me.
Me neither, because it just seems to be like, we're like, hey, we're serious, but nobody seems to be serious, and it's just talk until you come up with a PDF, and then they're like, there's paper.
Right. Exactly. So I have to make sure I'm fully confident. This is what I want to do. I have all the script done, all of the shots. Like, I need to make sure I have everything ready to present. So at that point, I don't feel any type of doubt when I approach somebody with it and be like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the vision. This is the idea. This blah, blah, blah. All this good stuff that I'm at that point, I've learned that I have to do it, because I realize preparing it makes it it makes it a lot smoother for anybody. And I've had situations where I've even gave advice to people about it, like, hey, prepare everything you need to do, and if you don't do it, it ain't gonna come together like you want it to. And I've told people, and I've seen people fall through.
I'm a coach on that. I teach people how to plan and strategize for their projects, for their stuff, and literally step by step. And then they go, what do you mean I have to do that? What do you mean I have to think about that? Isn't there people for that? Yes, there is people for that. But however, one of the things that I've learned, and I'm sure you can share from your experience, is that just because there's people for that job doesn't mean they understand your vision or how you want it executed, without the actual laying out the foundation of it. The structure of it needs to come from you. The infrastructure of how you want the policy, the procedure, all those words that we may be afraid of, those things need to come from you, so that people can look at it, review it, see if they fit the position for it, want to be a part of that position, and want to give that time and follow that as well, because you need people to follow you. You need people to make you better. You need people to see where you're wrong, or see where the holes are, so they can be filled in, because you are doing all these things. And when we can start looking at from that perspective in changing, we take full ownership and responsibility of everything we're doing, and can go, no matter what happens, when people don't meet, we don't meet the deadline, or we haven't, whatever it is, somebody isn't up to par, it's no one's fault but the person in charge, because at the end of the day, you set the full foundation, the full role, the full space. Is there a project where you thought you had all your ducks in a row and you were like, I'm the man, I got it, and you didn't either listen, or you didn't find it, or there's just, and there was a little bit of that tension, that like that thing, because you yourself thought you had it all done, But again, as we learn and as we grow, we don't ask the right questions of the people that were, around us. We don't go, hey, do you see what can be better? Do you see how we can fix this? Do you see how this can be improved? We just ask if you have, would you mind sharing, what that was and how did you yourself, outside of getting smarter and preparing better next time, how did you navigate that situation and what was the result?
I had a situation where I couldn't go through with a project because of my lack of planning. You know what I mean? So I learned it. I had to go through it. You know what I mean? So like it's like, but that's the only way you go learn is if you actually go through it. So I had a situation where I was trying to do this short film and parody, and of course, one of the number one things is scheduling, trying to get everybody together in the right time and whatnot. But I kind of I just couldn't pull it the way I thought I could in a sense. And we ended up not being able to do this Friday. This was almost a decade ago at this point. But I remember ever since then, I've been making sure I've been on point with that. So yeah, but it wasn't it was a tough situation for me because I really wanted to do it. I knew it was a great idea, but again, I just didn't do what I had to do to make it come together. And it's okay. I mean, I'd rather learn it earlier than now. You know what I mean? So
100%. 100%. I don't think we take our loss. I don't think but I know that a lot of us don't sit there and go, dang, this thing is like, what can I learn out of it? What's this something that I can do so that it won't happen again? I know I'll make this, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not even in 10 years, but it's going to get done because it's already done. The idea's there. But the execution of the process might take some time, and learning about myself or learning about others or just the process might take some time. So it's really good to be able to say no to even to yourself and stop the process from happening before you go in there. What was for that particular one? Was there like a, outside of like seeing that things weren't going to work or kind of knowing it, what was like your final, like, I know that I have to call this off. I have to trust my gut. I have to follow through that this isn't going to work no matter how hard I try. And like, I just have to, nip this in the bud. What was that conversation with yourself like, or process with? Because I think it's hard for us to have it, right? It's hard for us to acknowledge when we have hit that roadblock or not put that plan into the way we wanted to, and how do we actually stop it before we put ourselves in a position that's even worse?
Right. So I remember during the time, it was just constant schedule conflicts. That was like the biggest thing. I tried when I say I tried multiple times, it was so many, and I just knew at that point, because usually if it's supposed to go, it would happen. You know what I mean? So something was arranged there. But yeah, it was constant schedule conflicts between all of us. And at that point, I knew that if I keep going, I'm just gonna be wasting everybody's time. I would have gotten too deep into the situation. It would have made it much worse. So I had to call it off at that point. And because the situation wasn't changing. I tried different strategies. I tried different times. Nothing was working. And that's why I knew, I was like, yeah, I gotta let go. I gotta keep it going and just go from there.
And does that humble you a little bit every time you gotta call something and be like, you know what, because you gotta do it in front of people you respect and you admire and you thank for their time, right? And I think that's one of the things I admire about you that I've just learning even more, is that you really have respect for the fellow human who's around you and who's given in their time and who's given in their work, especially to their craft and to doing that. And tell me what you hope to achieve with, or let me rephrase this actually before I get to what you hope to achieve. Let me ask you, what has been the most surprising thing about the humans in this Jacksonville area right now through your experience in creating? Because I think a lot of us get a rep for Jacksonville and the arts community as not being as unified as it should be, or as we want it to be. It feels, even just in my last conversation, and even from my own perspective, it does feel a little bit more segregated than it should be, because we have so much talent. It's just in these little pockets and sectors of stuff, and it kind of stays there. So
I agree.
Yeah, okay, so it's still here.
It's still there.
Okay. So So what has been your greatest, maybe surprise on the good side from that community in this? And then what do you think we could do to bridge that gap between these amazing creatives? Because again, when I was at the pitch party, I'm in there and I'm meeting literally a room full of people for the first time that I didn't know existed to the capacity that we said we have a whole room to make a full feature film right there and then, like we could right there on the spot do
Absolutely.
it. And with all the talent, and yet it's just poof, right?
Right, all over, yeah.
Yeah. So what's been your what's the good surprise you found in that diversity that it is, or in that segregation? What surprised you out of the humans here, and then how do you think we could maybe influence the change and bridge that gap that we have?
Great question once again. So I'll bring back to the pitch party. I remember when we was talking at the pitch party, we were talking about we that was the subject that came up for like a lot of groups doing their own little separate thing. But I feel like just doing more events in general that caters to the film community. I feel like that is starting to bridge the gap in a sense, like slowly but surely. I feel like that's starting to help. Like even me personally, I'm trying to go to more film festivals in Jacksonville just to network with other filmmakers and go to film premieres. Like I think there's actually a film premiere tonight, and then
I'll be there at this or Sunray.
Yeah, I'll be there tonight too.
So listen, we gotta show up. Sunray, we'll see each other at Sunray. Listen, R.I.P. Sunray. We gotta just I signed the petition. People are, again, thank you, Jacksonville City, for wanting to keep all of our arts alive and keeping our heritage and our culture alive. You're doing a great job. So if you can hear the great sarcasm in my voice, that would be great.
You know it.
And again, nothing against anybody or anything, just stating the facts. So, okay, sidetrack. So we're going to be there. We're going to be supporting Royce in the documentary for the filmmakers. You're in it, I'm sure, right? Did he reach out to you? Me too. Look at us. We're both in there. And we didn't even know. This is the blessings and the beauty of community, right? And networking and connecting. What has surprised you about our Jacksonville community?
I will say this now, because since I've been doing this for a while, I remember when I started filmmaking in general, and this was back in 2006 when I started filming stuff. I'm just gonna speak from the film community perspective. It was very small at the time. It was literally only a few people doing it at the time as far as the filmmaking, video production. I mean, Chad Hendricks was still doing it.
Oh wow.
At that point, I think Chad Hendricks is probably one of the few people that has been doing it as long as I have. If not, I think he probably did longer. But anyway, I remember when I started doing it, it was just very small. And over the course of when DSLR cameras started coming around, I kind of felt like it was more consumer friendly in a sense. So more people kind of had more access to making films, and it just slowly started growing. But we'll address the elephant in the room. Yes, there are still, like you said, there are still groups of people, separate things going on. But yeah, I feel like if we keep pushing in the festivals and the film meets and things like that, and even me personally, I try to connect with other filmmakers with the films that I do. So either they cast as a character or just or helping out on set or something like that. And I also offer to help on set when I can, if I'm available or whatever. So I try to do my part, but I feel like we'll eventually get to the point of everything crossing over it. But I don't know. I can't put a date on it, obviously.
Right.
I feel like eventually it'll come together.
We got to. There's too many of us who believe in that, and in each of our sectors, really in each of our little corners. And I know that because I'm constantly out there talking to people, and I'm like, oh my God, on the west side we got this, on the north side we got this, and then in Orange Park we got this. Middleburg, I didn't know Middleburg had that. What? And you're like, what are you talking about? And right. But again, we have to give what it is. Our land size is so massive that it's so hard, and taking the initiative to drive out 30 minutes out of our time that is to do things consistently for things, and again, then maybe don't bring as much value at the time in our space in life that we needed to, makes it also harder for us to do that. So again, I understand all the all the nuances of our community growing and what could be hindering it. I do believe that we can do a little better job of encouraging each other and motivating each other in what we're doing, and giving our flower. Maybe not all the bouquets. And I was, as I talked to somebody else, maybe giving the flower where the flower is and allowing our filmmakers to, or our creatives to create the bouquets that they want, just with that support and with showing up and with kinds of, words of encouragement, because small steps are still steps. And I think that with the new way our city has taken the initiative to support just the filmmakers on that small step, I've heard a lot of talk on social media and seen a lot of, well, that's such a small amount for this, or that's so, this and this and that. And it's like, well, it's a start. Why can't we start somewhere? Why can't we start and take it and build it into greatness? What makes us think that we deserve the greatness up front? Like, we haven't put in the work. We haven't, some of us haven't put in the work. For some of us, we've been going 2 decades and then going and putting in that work. But what makes us think that it's just to be handed and not the actual part of what's going to sustain it, right? Which is the community, and unifying that, because we can make Jacksonville a different center of film than LA, than Atlanta, than Miami, because we're a different kind of community. I really believe that there is so much diversity and so much power in that community here, just because each human here has a different story to tell and different perspective, and a different skill to follow up on, right? And yet, because we're going to look at it from what section of town they come from or what neighborhood they're in from, we're not going to give it the same value as we would in some other or places. And our perception of that is a little bit skewed, I feel like, as people who are living here and experiencing that. So I think that we should, showcase more of that artwork, like with the Moncrief documentary from, let me make sure I get it right. I have it right, Dana.
Dana,
Yep, from Dana. Is it Mall or?
I believe so.
Okay, so if we're saying it wrong, we apologize.
Sorry.
Right. We're so sorry, Miss Dana. But it's Maule, and she did Moncrief Springs documentary, which I can't wait to talk to her about this too. But again, knowing what we have in our city, knowing what we have, that's the power of art, right? Like, that's the power of what we have as creatives in this community. And to ask you the question on that now, what have you seen have you seen our artist influence change in our community through the works that we've done? And if not, do you think we have the potential to do that and create the changes that we want just through the voices of the arts that we have?
I believe so. Because like I said earlier, it's like when I started doing everything, 8, 15, 17, 18 years ago, it wasn't much going on. I feel like, I'm gonna say this. So it wasn't even just from the film side, even outside of film, it wasn't much going on. Even then, it wasn't not just film, but just a lot of artists was not really emerging as much. It's like, I guess it wasn't really a thing back then.
Right.
So I feel like with that growing the way it did, it grew exponentially. Like it grew like a huge. So I feel like because of that, it is bringing more events to the city. Number one, like we pretty much we've had this stigma for a long time that there's nothing to do in Jacksonville, and I feel like us artists changed that.
We're changing that.
I feel like it irks me when I hear that. Like, because if you know, I feel like the artists really kind of changed that stigma in a sense. Now, of course, you got to bring more people into the mix, because some people are still not aware about it to this day. But I feel like we have changed that part of Jacksonville that there's nothing to do, because again, it's an event pretty much every single week in Jacksonville, and it's mainly from us. It's mainly from our events, our premieres, our shows, our
music events that are happening. Right, the music events, the art festivals that are happening are so like everything that we're doing into creating this buzz and changing the perspective has been from the artist perspective. You're absolutely right, because for a long time, and still to this day, we still have a bad rep of what Jacksonville is, versus when you're actually here, we're not just the crime city, okay? Like, we're not just this, like, absolute hood thing that you call in terrible way that we can't, and just mean people. We're not. Actually, Jacksonville, from what I have found in my travels, is one of the most, again, beautiful, diverse communities we have from all aspects of life. And if you just go downtown to talk to people, if you find out their stories and hear who they are, where they're from, why they're there, it gives you a different perspective about Jacksonville, and it gives you the history a bit more that you don't even hear, again, in our records or in our news or in things like that. You get to hear from the fellow human being that's lived here, that's native, that understands. And I think we have quite a few of those the stories that you're absolutely right. We are changing that dynamic in that, and the only way it'll continue is if we continue to tell those stories, because those stories or those voices are we the people. We're powerful. We the people, when we unite, we are powerful in what we need to do. The messaging, though, has to be good. And it can't be a message of hate. It can't be a message of revenge or hate or vengeance. It has to be a message of love and uniting. And I do believe Jacksonville has, as artists, as who we are, has the actual, right now, front runner for being able to create that change we're in a vacuum that's needed, right? That is so needed. And artists really and an artist like us and what you're doing, and which I want to get into your next movie and your film, and what you're doing and how you're creating and involving that community to do that. It's showcasing that, again, we have the potential to do what we need to do if we're doing it right and treating our humans right, and shine and create the platform of Jacksonville and film and arts that can compete at the levels of these other ones right now that are in the negative space and in the narrative that is in putting down and isolating. And I say this, isolating through diversity too, not let's be real, not just unifying through diversity, but actually absolutely just making us behave in a way that we claim it's under that, and it's not. So I was like, I lost my train of thought. But so now the question I wanted to ask you, tell me how the community has helped you create this new feature that you've got going on, Future Soul, that's going to be coming out. And tell me about it. Tell me about the sci-fi drama. Tell me the idea behind it and inspiration, and tell me. It's the fun part.
I got a story on that one. So as far as the community is concerned, as far as being every film that I do, I always do my best to have the community involved with it as much as possible, even through extras, or playing a character, or just helping on set, things like that. I have a lot of people ask questions on how to be a part of what I'm doing. So I always try to I'm very open on that, number one. But yeah. I do the casting calls and whatnot. People come out to the casting calls. We have a lot of people that always come out. It's a great experience just to meet people and see people audition. It's fun for me. I love seeing. Send
me the next invite. I'd love to come out. I don't know what role, but I'll come out.
It's so fun to me. I really enjoy the process of.
Casting is really casting, not to change it, but casting is seriously, to me, the most fun part of the process, because you're really finding the character to the story and seeing what nuances. It's not about what's written in the paper, but what's not, right? Is that how you look at it? Because I look at it about as... Right. I look at it as not what's really necessarily written on paper, but when the nuance of the essence of that character comes in front of you, it's like you just know. And that... okay. Did you did you have that moment for a character in your story that you knew that this is it, this is what's like, and you knew that was just gonna be flawless because they were just it? Because I know I've had a few of those, and I'm like, my job is so easy because you're so easy, like you're so great.
Right.
Yeah. What was that? Did you have that?
Oh, I can tell you, I've had plenty of those. Like at the casting call, I've had plenty of moments where, this is the one that's playing this character. Like I was already sold on this person, kind of thing. Like I've had that happen, like pretty much several times, and it is like, and the crazy thing about that is, before I go to the next part, like the crazy thing about that is like, once I'm sold on somebody, once I'm sold to a person that can play the specific character, nobody else can really change my mind at that point. It's very difficult to break that. So. Right,
that person would have to potentially commit murder or do something really atrocious for me to have to for me to say no to that. Because once it's done, I don't care what you say. That's it. They're the essence. I mean, but at least that's on my end. But I'm not much of a hard ass when I'm like, I want that. That's it. They're like, Adela, we should change it. I'm like, did they commit murder? Did they do something absolutely that would be atrocious and against humankind? Well, no. I said, okay, then. Like,
okay, long like that, maybe. So yeah, I've had plenty of those. And then, for the people that can't, and then what I also do as well, I also do virtual casting calls as well. So I make sure to give everybody a fair chance to audition, because some of the cast members have been selected from the in-person casting call, and some of the cast members has been selected from the virtual casting call. So it's not like it lowers your chances. I mean, if you can't make it to the physical one, I'm gonna give you that opportunity still. Right. So I try to be as fair, as open as possible. And then for the people that are just not quite ready to play a role but could be an extra, I definitely put that information out for people to be extra. So the community always come together for, when I get ready to do a project, they're always ready to be a part of it and or support the project in some fashion or some way or form. So from that point, we just start filming everything and kind of keep it going. I make the trailer reveals exciting. I kind of like make that an event on the zone, and community just excited, anticipating the trailer. So I kind of do things to keep everybody involved and keep everybody updated with everything that I'm doing, just so just to keep everybody aware. I mean, I do the best I can, from where I'm at, and kind of go from there.
We're one person. We're one human being.
That's it.
Right.
I do the best I can from where I'm at. So, I mean, but everybody has been very helpful especially the cast has been very helpful with, help promote the movie, share the movie, things like that. But the story itself is an interesting one, because it is a time travel story. It's a time travel story, and of course it has been done before, but the way I did it was different. It's so because the main character switched places with his younger self by accident. So now his younger self is in the current time, trying to figure out what is going on. He has no idea what's what, and then the current ones in the past thinking it worked, have no idea he switched places with his younger self. So that's just like the base of the story. But the characters, quite a few of them are based on real life family members, almost like a love letter to the family in some sense. Like, I had a couple of scenes that had passed, and two of the characters are based on those characters. So it's kind of like, what would I do in those situations if I can bring them back in some way? What would I do, or how would I play that out or whatever. So I think it's personally a story for myself and the family in a way, because it's a good therapeutic thing for me personally. So story wise and character wise, is very special for me. And as far as the cast is concerned, they have definitely been on point playing these characters. It's been fun on set, especially one with extras. We did a pool party scene. We did like a Hollywood scene, like we did a WJCT. We had a lot all out, just having a fun time. We also did a banquet scene as well, where everybody was kind of upscale. So we still do our part to make the city look beautiful. Also, it's like, we highlight Jacksonville as well in these films. We don't just tell a story. We also highlight Jacksonville, because I feel like that's important to me, to showcase the city as well, but also obviously make sense in the storyline. But
right,
I still make that part of the writing just to make it work.
Right. No, I love. Well, I wanted to ask you, Jacksonville has become my home. It's absolutely my home. I come from a time and place where my home was completely taken and destroyed, and just had no chance of saying it. And then I spent so long searching for it, trying to go back to it, trying to figure out and get the identity of it. And then I realized that being in Jacksonville, and just through art and experiencing artists like yourself and different humans, that this is home. This is period, and home is where you decide you're going to let your heart be, and where you're going to love the humans that are there and see them for what they are, and really just experience it. And once I learned that, and being through that, and again, being in these art communities really helped me understand that. What has, you mentioned that the two characters were based on two family members that passed, which my condolences to you for that. And what was the greatest challenge in writing this story? Or did you find it more just, as you said, an homage and more of a love letter to their teachings, to their greatness? Or what was so challenging about having to play that out and do that do those scenes or do those storylines that, again, as a
Oh yeah.
somebody who's, you're dealing with somebody that's, you know, so well, and these humans that others are portraying. Did you have any reservations, or what was that process like for you?
As far as my sister is concerned, she had passed in 2020, so but that was my first time ever talking about that in a story, in a
Hmm.
film. It took a while for me to get to that point, of course,
Right.
obviously, obvious reasons. But and then my brother, well, he's my stepbrother, but I call him my brother. But my stepbrother actually passed away while I was writing the script. So I didn't get a chance to actually tell him before he had passed. So that was a very tough moment. So writing these
Wow.
characters and yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, yeah. He was still alive when I started writing the script. So it was what it was, I think for me personally, it was a way for me to express what I was feeling within the storyline.
Right.
So, and that's why I mentioned earlier, I think it'll be great for the family because they will understand the references that I'm telling this film. So, but yeah, writing was definitely hard. Like writing those characters out was definitely difficult because, but it was a great way for me to heal. You know what I mean? Because I got to speak
Hmm.
my mind in a form of my art and it turned into a beautiful story at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So, uh, ironically, and ironically, so the lady that plays the character that's based on my sister, so I think I mentioned this earlier, and this was a crazy moment, and I'll never forget it. She told me I reminded her of her brother that passed away, and she reminded me of my sister that
Oh,
passed away.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Like such a cosmic
yeah,
connection to have here while you're doing something, to have like
wow,
the opposite, right? Like the complete yin and yang of somebody experiencing something from two perspectives,
yeah,
not only from a unified human perspective of having to grieve and understand and process this loss, but also from the male and the female version of understanding what it is to navigate something that you lost. That's the other version of you, right? Like you lost your sister, she lost her brother, and here you are having an essence of a sister, and here she is having an essence of a brother, to
hmm
kind of bring this just union forth. I think that's so beautiful. What a beautiful story,
it really
to
is.
come out of that. Thank you for that
Yeah,
is, make sure you share that because that is right there. That is such a beautiful story. And I think when we start doing these, when you got this idea to do this, was there, outside of, again, paying this homage, did you was there like a persistent need to just say something, like you said, it helped you heal or express? Did you even know what that was, or did you just have to start writing, or you knew that you wanted to say something to the loved ones, but you didn't know what, and or did you have a clear idea?
The story itself, I mean, well, the main storyline I had the idea for already, but as far as those characters, I just felt like it was something I needed to do because I've been
Hmm.
kind of with the exception of like making like those little notes in my previous films, like for my siblings or whatever. But yeah, I feel like I wanted to tackle that part of my life in some way. I wanted to tell that story of what I felt as the older brother going through that time. And the way the story plays it out, it references all of this stuff, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I feel like it was something I needed to do. I mean, because I didn't want to be quiet about it forever. I've been quiet about it for the last few years. So I was like, you know what, I need to. It was just I was just had this urge to tell this part of my life and to
Hmm.
be vulnerable for the very first time. Because the last projects I did was like more. It was drama. It was more like the action films and stuff like that. So I was just having fun with those films.
Hmm.
Having fight scenes and whatnot. But but this was like more of a vulnerable place for me
This
to
was your
go for, and
soul. I mean, this was your
yeah, and
soul.
I felt if you just sold. I
Yeah,
mean, the
this was your
title
soul.
very fitting. It told And yeah, so but it was great. I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that I went to that vulnerable spot in my life and being able to tell that story because somebody else is going to need to hear that and see that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great moment for sure.
No, I'm really excited. Please invite me to the premiere. I'd love to be there. I'd love to support. So let me know. personally message me, tagging me on social media, it just doesn't work. I don't see that stuff. There's too much of it. But if you personally message me, I'm there. Because again, that it's, I remember having to share my story of my suicide attempt, and just I had to get it off the chest without saying anything, but just like share what that felt like. And the only way I could do that was through I couldn't necessarily talk about it in the way even just now, right? But to say what I needed to say, what I felt like, where I was gonna go, what I hoped for. I did a music video, and music is a huge part of my thing. And that really influenced, like, again, changing my perspective of how I was going to do stuff, and how art really had the way to transform your word of what you thought, transform your reality, and also be, again, the curse to your reality if you don't take control of it, because it can let you play with your imagination so hard. How do you think that not just the film portion of that of this in this music, but or in this film, but the music and the selection of the lighting and all of this, how much of that did play into what you were potentially feeling and representing in those feelings, like anxiety, or may or may be right, but like depression? Because a lot, if we go through grief or even grief, or were those feelings, or were those conversations as you were doing and editing and being part of that, how did that play into ensuring that the feeling of what you were trying to convey was there? Was that challenging to do for you, or was your team really just on point to know exactly how it was going to be for you, or were you able to translate that enough for them to do that?
Oh, like you said on the music side of everything?
Yeah. Like, and just the post stuff, because the post can be it changes a lot. The post is so let's be real. We talk about the filming and the pre-production, the planning. We don't talk about enough, like we said, the post. And that post is what is literally almost life draining when you have to go back and review and rewatch and second guess almost everything that you did or didn't do. With this particular, because it was so personal, was it so much more fluid at that end of that to like, no, this is it. Like, I know the melancholy of this. I know the triumph of this. I know the space of this. Was your narrative really defined for this by the end of that? Or did you need help in redefining that? Because what I found is that I needed help in really redefining a lot of my ending of it, because I thought I had, and this was it. And boy, once you go through it, you're like, not even close. Or was it pretty on point?
I mean, I to be honest with you, all of that is still pending right now, because we're still pending on that right now. But I will say this: I believe once I get to that point, like when it comes to music in general, I am very like particular on it, and I feel it's important. Like, it's extremely important to really like let it drive those emotions out, because music does play a huge part in this every scene. Now, however, I did peep the clips that we've done, and then I'm already starting to think of ideas of what type of sound that I want to put behind it, and to really kind of push that narrative of what's actually happening in the scene. So definitely something I got to think on still, but I know for sure once I get to that point, it's gonna definitely.
Well, I'd love to hear that conversation, because I think that's where I am all about the depth of a human and seeing where the process is in the process of doing something, because we as a human being, when we're in something so personal, we're doing it from a perspective of getting it done in logical and strategy and planned, and the emotion we say we're processing and we're doing, but we're not really, maybe not. Or if we are, I'm so intrigued in the ability of us to be able to feel the depths that we feel, right? Whether that's joy or pain or triumph or tragedy, whatever it is, to feel it at the depths that we feel it, and then be able to translate it in a controlled manner into something that is packaged, that required you to literally figure out, because the emotion is so overpowering for most people that it's so hard to even get out of bed at days, right? And you know, when we talk about mental health and we talk about art or we talk about expression or in any shape or form, we talk about the overwhelming feeling that literally shuts you down, and it's a feeling of impossibility, a feeling of despair, a feeling of nothing, a feeling of emptiness, just non-existence. And to be able to and then add grief or add loss or add, you know, just a tragedy to an event of already feeling that. I know from personal experience, I've been there, I say that, so you know, it's just, but to know how to translate it, that emotion into that, and how music plays such a vital role in connecting that and that slight frequency and making it happen. I would love to sit down with that for that conversation when you do that, because I want to dissect that brain and be like, what was that key? Why did that key do that? What did that ting in you right there? Why? Because if we experience and explore that, I think that it'll translate, and it translates so much better when we do it to others and they go, oh, that like crescendo moment goes poof. And it could be somebody, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about with that. Just
I got something too.
Tell me.
Just thought about it now. I remember now there was a scene in a couple of the projects that I've done, and it kind of like it's like a sad and somber type of scene because one of a love characters in the hospital severely injured, and it had and then the character in the hospital was like very angry and upset. Felt like she wasn't protected and things like that. So when she had to kind of pull into that side, she had to pull those emotions out. And so I think I found like some piano tunes or something like that. I can't remember the top of my head. It was like a piano key, just keys. And it was just, look.
So, you know, okay. So that's like that's where I thrive in that so much. I just think that that's such a like, oh my God, need for that conversation and that.
Because if it's pulling you, if it's pulling you, the one that created the story, it's gonna pull a lot of people.
It has to, right. Like it can't not translate. It has to. But I think we also as artists we lose the key when we make it because we try to think what the audience might want or what it should go with versus what you're actually feeling in the moment of the experience. I think that transcribes so much more. So like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that because that's going to be that especially because again, because of how deep this topic is and how personal this whole process and the story is to you. And I hope the humans who are listening or in watching this podcast and can hear what we're talking about, that art and film and sure all this that we're doing, it's a form of expression. It's a form of, in a way for you to create something out of what you might think is absolutely the worst part of your existence today, but it's a moment in passing. And that moment in passing can be a moment of one day or 1 year or 10 years, but it's a decision up to you and how you decide to react to it and in what ways you decide to push forward. I hope that you find encouragement in these stories and in people who are making and creating films or creating music or creating art, creating fashion, creating their home, okay? Literally, you creating your home is a piece of art, creating your family, creating yourself. It is really your ability to create whatever it is you desire to do. And I hope you take away the courage and the strength that a human can have, the resilience that it can have if it decides to channel it outside of its feeling, right? Like outside of what is so overwhelming for us. And the more you gain through that feeling and the more knowledge you gain about that feeling, the better story you'll get to tell and the more humans you'll get to affect. And I think, Carlos, you've done that through quite a few of your projects because so many people do know you and so many things that you're doing. And I think that this film is going to really touch a lot of humans who need to understand what grief is, what loss is, but I assume also what triumph at the end of it is and looks like, and how it can challenge you in your worst ways, but also the community around you can pick you up and push you through, and you just have to be willing to reach out and willing to look past that self into that and thank you for doing that, because again, those stories are the ones that change the most, and we do, and I think we avoid from them because we know how great they're going to be. There are stories, but we don't want to we don't want to say that out loud. Right, it's true. So can you tell me what the plan is for Future Soul that's coming up in the premieres are going to be coming out, I believe I have it down here, on 9/20 in Jacksonville, so September 20th, and then in Orlando, September 28th. So tell me what that process is like right now that you're going through, or it has been, what the challenges have been in getting these things, because some of our creatives right now are trying to figure out how they're even going to get it shown or get a premiere going. You've done these quite a few now and are kind of an expert in how you're doing them. What has been your process so far? What have you learned in this one compared to the other ones? And where are we going to be here in Jacksonville seeing you? For those who are in Jacksonville.
Of course. So, right now it's I think the more I've done these premieres, the better it's gotten for me. Like for me, I don't learn from every last one that I've done. I always try to think what I can do differently from the last ones, or if I do a bigger presentation, or so on and so forth. So we're gonna premiere at the Regal Theater. I premiered my movie there, one of my movies there last year. The one up the street from Avenues Mall.
Yep.
So. And it's a great theater.
It's an awesome theater. I think it gets so much undervalued. It's like, it just doesn't get enough attention. It's a great theater.
Hey, so and then when I did premiere last year, I just loved the experience there. I've done AMC a couple times, of course. Good shout out to Sunray. I've done a couple of my, of course. Even the San Marco Theater, and I worked with somebody. RP to that theater, but yeah, it's just essentially similar process that I've always been doing. Just reach out to the theater, make sure it's available that day, and then we kind of start building the plan from there. Because I like to plan ahead of time. As that's one of the most important things. We plan everything ahead of time because we want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row before the premiere happens. Everything set up for the cast, tickets, all that good stuff. So we kind of like keep it as streamlined as possible because, of course, there's a lot of moving pieces in premieres. So from the movie itself to the sponsors to the we even have the theatrics behind it, like the red carpet, the limo bus, and all that stuff. So we have
the flashing lights and cameras, Hollywood style.
Correct. We have all of that. So we just kind of like, but yeah, it's been pretty smooth so far. Like I said, we just kind of like, we know exactly where we want to do it at. We know where we want to premiere it at. And if we kind of like write down our game plan of how we're going to pull it off. And, we're taking it slowly, but that's why we started now rather than later. As far as Orlando's concerned, I've done two of my movie premieres in Orlando before. I've lived in Orlando for like 5 years at one point. So I got connections in Orlando as well. So that's why. And then plus I got family in Central Florida.
Yeah.
So I was like, why not?
Network and put it out as many people as possible.
Exactly. So Orlando, good. We you remember Gene Cover that was at the pitch party, and ironically enough, the film that he showed, the film that he showed, it was like a short film, it was like a very short. I actually did the editing for that film, and I was like, oh wait, I know this guy. Like it was interesting. I don't think I've met Gene up until that day, and I didn't know he was part of that. I didn't know. It was the actor.
Listen, this is it right here, you guys. This is it right here. You never know who you know, where you're going to go with who you're working and what you're doing. Just because you don't know all the details behind the scenes of what's happening doesn't mean that somebody doesn't know your name or you don't know someone's name somewhere or that you've worked together on something so far. Just like that. It's that 1 degree of separation right now. And how wonderful is that?
That was pretty cool. I was like, oh, I know. So it was pretty cool to meet him. And, he was telling me, hey, if you need help with the Orlando show, I got you. So we've been, Trey Ford, that was there. Trey said he's going to talk to Gene about it. So we'll definitely make that connection and come together with that premiere for sure.
Yeah, I just did Trey's interview last week, and so I'm excited to share that. What a great guy too he is, and
I was
his
trying to say
story.
before, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Awesome. So, let's find out where everybody can find you. Can find Cast 2 Films and Carlos and all the other good stuff and all your previous work, and how we can support you as a community, or if there are sponsors out there who want to support, how can we all come out and find you and do that?
Absolutely. So I am on Instagram at Cast2Films, that's CAS number 2 films. At The Future Soul for Instagram as well. I'm on Facebook as well. I need to delete some people because I'm at my max. I need to delete some people.
You better, because I sent you a friend request. You better accept that.
No, I cannot. I literally cannot add anybody right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, who can I delete? So I got. But yeah,
I know, but sub somebody for me. Sub somebody for me right there, because I'm waiting on that.
But yeah, you can find me on Facebook at right now I'm Carlos the filmmaker Smith II, or you can just put in facebook.com/LOS2K6 and that'll go straight to my page. We also have the Future Soul on Facebook as well. Just type in The Future Soul, it'll come up. YouTube, I'm at LOS2K6, and for a lot of my work is at as well. I'm pretty much mostly active on those 3 platforms. I'm not really on, well, they call it X now. I'm still gonna call it Twitter. I don't care.
I call it Tweeter. tweet. So,
but Cast 2 Films on Twitter, X, whatever they call it at this point, and but yeah,
listen, some hills we gotta die on. Okay, some hills are just
I'll make it work. But yeah, that's where you can find me at on the social platforms, and I will keep posting updates with the movie premiere. We'll be opening up sponsorship soon for the premiere on in Orlando and Jacksonville. We'll be putting more information out on that soon. So yeah, that's where you can find me at, and hope to connect with you guys for sure.
Perfect. So make sure you guys are following all of that. And let's leave our listeners and viewers with a message of inspiration, hope, a last word of encouragement that they can take with them.
Good one. Ooh.
I know. Welcome to a good podcast. I better get a good review.
So there's this line in my movie that I wrote that I actually there's 2 things that I always say, and this is what some of my mom always says. So I put this in my movie as well. So everything you do builds character.
Yes.
That's one simple line that's stuck with me.
Yes.
And another line that I have in the movie that's a personal thing for me is that I feel like you're doing something right when you inspire others to do the right thing. So that's the thing. Those 2 little things that stick with me, forever. So I'm always going to say those little things in my thought process. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. This has been such a great blessing. I am looking forward to having more conversations with you and sharing more of your journey with our listeners and our viewers. And you guys, please listen, please follow. He is a phenomenal filmmaker, but it also, again, I was right, as always, Adela is right, an awesome human being. So just follow him and follow his story, and make sure that you tune in to The Future Soul coming up in the premieres and all the other details that are going to be coming up with all of that. So I thank you all. I appreciate you. And until next time, my dear friends, I wish you nothing but the blessings, nothing but the love. Enjoy your day, and see you around.